Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Eat Meat and Make Families. We're coming at you from Ecuador, chilling out here in the red light district. I got my red light therapy device on, right on my feet there. That's why he looks all crazy behind me. But we're doing another Eat Meat, Make Babies stream, or rather Eat Meat, Make Families, because making babies without families isn't really doing anyone much good. Today we're going to be talking about this book here, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. I'll stand up during this section here. So, 1939, this book was first published. Dr. Weston A. Price actually started the American Dental Association way back in the day. Now, modern dentistry obviously has degenerated as much as modern allopathic medicine. You've got kind of the, fill the mouth with mercury, do a root canal and move on. Root canals, of course, being associated with many degenerative diseases, including cancer. So, it wasn't always like this, though. Most dentists, back in the day, were kind of trying to take a more holistic approach, and Weston A. Price was trying to figure out why he was seeing such degeneration among the Western populations. So Western population, being British and American cultures, were seeing massive amounts of dental caries. As soon as kids' teeth started erupting from the gums, there was massive degeneration already present. Weston A. Price was trying to figure out the reasons why. He realized that it couldn't just have been hygiene, because dental hygiene was improving massively. And while in some cases it could help, and there were certain bacterial infections and stuff that would be ameliorated by proper dental hygiene, he realized that the degeneration that he was seeing was not due to just insufficient brushing and flossing. So he postulated that there must have been some sort of factor, some sort of perhaps nutritional factor that was involved. What he did was he set out to study modern cultures that were not experiencing the degeneration. Modern cultures that had good bones, good muscles, attractive skin, normal endocrine systems, a healthy liver. He realized that many Russian peasants were subsisting basically on vegetable soup, hard rye, bits of meat, but they still had teeth and health that were superior to the modern American cultures in the cities, as well as the British culture. So he realized that sugar, refined foods, white flour, white sugar, skim milk, when you remove certain fat-soluble vitamins, you would get massive degeneration in the culture. What he tried to do was find populations that were not undergoing this degeneration. He wanted to find what he called isolated remnants of primitive racial stocks in different parts of the world. These stocks had a high immunity to many of our serious affections, so long as they were sufficiently isolated from our modern civilization and living in accordance with the nutritional programs which were directed by the accumulated wisdom of the group. And this is what we're seeing right now with our modern food supply being generated. We're seeing a complete disconnect from the ancestral knowledge of how to actually nourish ourselves. The ancestral knowledge that these cultures exhibited was striking in many cases. So one of the first cultures he ended up looking at was isolated modernized Swiss, or comparing rather isolated and modernized groups of Swiss. So we found a certain group of Swiss peoples that lived in what was called the Luschental Valley. Of course, I'm mispronouncing that. My apologies to all the Swiss out there. I do not speak the language nor read it well. But over in the Luschental Valley, they had long winters, short summers, and after those summers, they had extraordinarily rapid and luxuriant growth in the grasses, which their cattle would graze on. They didn't have doctors, they didn't have dentists, not because these were primitive idiot people and they weren't modernized into the great plant-based vegan cultures as being promoted through the Royal Society, as being promoted by plant-based news, and some of these hacktivists out there. So they had neither physician nor dentist, very little need for them, no policemen, no jails. So they didn't have a bunch of the degenerate culture we see now. These individuals in this society were not prone to criminality. Very, very interesting that he ended up finding and postulating that there was a very close relationship between criminality and nutrient deficiencies. Criminality and nutrient deficiencies, improper brain development. And these theories that he had were later vindicated when you look at low cholesterol levels and the relationship between low cholesterol and violence, antisocial behavior, antisocial personality disorder, and homicide. So among people going to prison for homicide, there is a high correlation between homicide, murder, suicide, and low cholesterol. How interesting that so many of these vegan hacktivists that you see pushing the vegan agenda out there are also former criminals and drug addicts, like our friend here, showing us how we've been taught to eat in our modern society. Let's take a look at what our modern world is taught is a good, healthy diet, sustainable for the planet in the degenerated, completely nonsensical vegan cosmological framework and vegan religion. Let's see what Earth's self-declared Earth's hope here, Joey Carbstrong, has for his epic vegan meals. And let's compare that with some of the ancestral meals that the communities that didn't deal with mental, physical, and moral degeneration, like Joey Carbstrong here has obviously dealt with, due to being a self-proclaimed felon and drug addict, who found veganism as his saving grace and a way to give himself a false sense of meaning and superiority. Let's check out his video here.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Now we're going to do a little bit of a different video today. I'm always telling you about the ethics of not eating or harming or eating animals, but I never really give you any options on my YouTube channel for what to eat. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm always posting stuff of my food, but I thought we'd do a little bit of a cooking style video today and give you all some ideas for new vegans or older vegans who have been vegan for a while, who are failing to find things to eat. But we're going to head into my friend's kitchen. This isn't my kitchen, I wish it was my kitchen. We're going to head into my friend's kitchen and show you some amazing vegan, cruelty-free meal ideas. Let's hit it. Another thing, this is not a health video. Health has nothing to do with the ethics of veganism, okay? I don't care what you eat, as long as you don't harm anyone in the process. All right, let's go. Okay, so it's breakfast time, and for breakfast, because we're in beautiful England, we're gonna do a full English breakfast, vegan style. Let's hit it. Okay, so we've got some hash browns from Sainsbury's. We've got some of this mozzarella style cheese. We've got some of these cauldron vegan sausages. This is the secret weapon for the scrambled eggs, tofu, naked tofu. We've got some beans here. Oh, nutritional yeast, another secret weapon. We've got a nice big tomato there. We've got some mushrooms. Bang! Maple flavored bacon rations, Cheatin from Bee Bites, amazing. Let's get all this stuff on. All right, so we're just gonna chuck some bacon in. Boom.
All right, kind of over the top, right? So what we're seeing there is, and if there's stuttering on the stream, what I'm doing is I'm also recording this live as well, and I'll just delete the stream and then upload this as a video after this is over. I don't know, I had it recording earlier, and I did a couple tests. I've been trying to work on this OBS stream all morning. Apparently I'm still getting stuttering, even though I have plenty of upload speed. Don't know what's going on. It must be the way I set it up. Who knows? Maybe the Leguminati trying to... No, I'm just kidding. I must have set this up wrong. But anyways, so of course, you know, I mean, a healthy vegan diet doesn't is the ethicals and of not harming anybody, which the vegan community loves to confuse humans and animals, while at the same time admitting that humans do hold a special place in what's called nature to them. They love to confuse you and confound you with words and definitions that don't really define, like nature and what's natural. So there's the natural vegan diet: fake steak, fake eggs, fake bacon, fake cheese. Or what was it? Fake bacon, fake sausage, and fake cheese. Soy-based, highly processed, highly destructive to the environment, using lots of glyphosate. Very, very, very low quality food. And these are the exact types of food that actually degenerate the human body and degenerate human cultures, according to Weston Price's work in one of the most important books of the 20th century, one of the most important books on nutrition ever, nutrition and physical degeneration. All right, so these people lived in small villages. They had a very close-knit community. The valley had produced not only everything that is needed for clothing, but particularly everything that is needed for food. They had some of the finest physiques in all of Europe. They had trucks, no horses, no wagons. They did all their labor physically by hand, right? I mean, so many people nowadays on the modern diet, based on all the wheat, all the sugar, all the junk food, are just simply unable to do physical work, do physical labor. Very common occurrence. We see a lot of degeneration among modern populations, a lot of arthritis, a lot of negative effects of these very low quality, low nutrition diet when you're not getting the fat soluble vitamins you need, when you're not getting the proper nutrition that's required for humans to actually live. Lived mostly off of milk, cheese, butterfat, and meats. They also would use whole rye bread that they'd actually process themselves with their own grain mills. And these people's teeth and health was exceptionally strong. They had very low incidences of tuberculosis, even though in the Western world, and especially in Switzerland at the time, tuberculosis was one of the #1 degenerative diseases that people are. It's one of the most intense degenerative diseases that people are experiencing in Switzerland. But at this time, this group of Swiss had no tuberculosis, had perfect teeth and dental arch formation. When adequate nutrition was provided for both the parents and the children, they had well-developed teeth and faces. Now, as soon as modernized foods came in, and they started living off of canned foods, off of processed foods, off of the white bread, off of the stripped of its mineral nutrient sources, when they got skim milk, the populations would rapidly degenerate. The dental arches and crowding in the teeth that is so common nowadays would be very prominent in the same racial stock, as he called them, in the same people. So you would see massive degeneration rather quickly. Very, very interesting. If dental caries were primarily a result of an inadequate amount of vitamin D, the sunning patients should provide adequate reinforcements. The sunning practices involved with they used to do a lot of heliotherapy in certain parts of Switzerland, but it wasn't fixing the dental problem. So he postulated that it was more than just the inadequate sunshine that was creating these issues in these populations. Yes, I know I'm getting streaming issues. I'm going to upload this later on. I'll delete this video. If you don't want to watch, don't watch. Don't complain about the buffering and streaming issues. I don't know what's going on. It's just what happens when I try to stream now. All right. So, high immunity to dental caries, freedom from deformity of the dental arches and faces, and sturdy features, sturdy physiques with high immunity to disease were all found associated with physical isolation and forced limitation in selection of foods. This resulted in very liberal use of dairy products and whole rye bread in connection with plant foods, and meat served about once a week, and these populations would off throughout the week. So they would have the scraps and the bones, and they would make bone broth, and they would drink that and eat that with small bits of meat throughout the day, but we're living primarily off of dairy, lots of butter, lots of cheese, lots of the butter fat. And they actually knew in this culture that when the grass was growing really rapidly, in the periods of the spring and the fall, right after the summer, they would get really, really high quality, deep, dark butter and a lot of good dairy fat that was associated with fertility, with life-giving forces, and with health. But in the modernized districts, there was widespread tooth decay, facial dental arch deformities, and susceptibility to disease associated with the use of refined cereal flours, high intake of sweets, canned goods, sweetened fruits, sweetened chocolates, greatly reduced use of dairy products. All right, so populations that West and Price studied, which was the modernized Swiss. Now, this is why we're always teaching to eat a nutrient-dense diet. It's not just important that you look at macronutrient levels. Looking at the nutrient density of your diet is incredibly important as well. Mr. Tayl's asking, how do you call in? I don't just do random call-in. Sorry, I screened this beforehand, and I set up the call-ins that we do beforehand. So we're going to be talking to the lovely Natalie Keto Page, who was a former victim of veganism, who transformed her diet to get her health back and to start feeling better. She's one of the less extreme cases that we'll be witnessing in the coming weeks with some of these interviews. And so yeah, sorry guys, we don't just do random call-ins. If you want to tell your story, if you want to talk about you recovering from a vegan diet, you can email me at Tristan@primaledgehealth.com, or you can contact me via Instagram. You can set up something and you can come on and tell your story, and we can talk about it and discuss your history with this. So anyways, the ketogenic diet, it's actually really, really easy to implement. Right? A lot of people will transition here into proper use of a ketogenic diet. A lot of people focus on simply the macronutrients, right? And that's actually the easiest part to nail down. Now, one of the most common confusions that we get, I can't tell you how many people who come to our Keto Collective group, the Keto Collective, the next one we're actually starting on July 29th. So many people come to us and they think that they're eating too much protein, when in fact they're not getting enough protein. They've been told that they need to restrict protein. They need to be they get told that they need to elevate their fatty acid intake to astronomical levels, and they're not getting the results of fat loss that they desire. So remember, there's different contexts that people are going to be doing keto for. Some people are doing it, let's use a ball here. Some people are doing keto for fat loss. Some people are doing keto for the cognitive benefits. Some people are doing a high-fat ketogenic or carnivore style diet because they've experienced the degeneration of our modern disease, and they're experiencing, symptoms of Alzheimer's at a young age. A friend of mine was telling me the other day that his girlfriend, who was in her not even her mid-30s, and in her early 30s already experiencing all of the symptoms of Alzheimer's and of cognitive decline. And this is really, really common nowadays. I mean, you see it. You see it you watch vegan YouTube channels, you're going to see lots of people talking about how they're contacting entities, talking about how they're becoming spiritually awakened, and they're becoming so sensitive to their environment, right? Contacting these entities in their waking consciousness. They're experiencing extreme hallucinations, many of these people, due to the decline in the nutrient density of their diet. Now, of course, low cholesterol levels being associated with high rates of violent crime, right? So a lot of people are doing keto to recover their health from the negative effects of their nutrient-depleted diet. So low cholesterol associated with cognitive decline, with Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, as well as suicidal tendencies, impulsivity, aggression, depression, and psychiatric issues. And you see this rampant among the vegan hacktivists, the McActivists, out there doing the bidding of big business like Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Tyson Foods, General Mills, Cargill, Monsanto, who love the plant-based push and are actually pumping billions of dollars every single year into marketing products, marketing this ideology, and telling you it's cool and sexy, using PETA, using fake celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, who's not even a vegan himself, yet funded the vegan propaganda film Cowspiracy to tell you to go vegan, while he flies his private jet to his private island to have orgies with models, probably eating all sorts of meat. So, people are doing keto for different reasons. People are changing their diet for different reasons. It's not just for fat loss, but most people, let's be honest, most of you out there doing keto are probably looking at fat loss, body composition changes, type 2 diabetes, diabesity is so rampant these days. And many people are doing keto for that reason. We get a lot of people who come to us for coaching. For that reason, we're not able, because so many people come to us for coaching, we're not really able to take on as many clients as we get requests for. So what we've done is we created the Keto Collective, which we do every other month. The next one's starting in less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks from Sunday, from yesterday. We're starting the next Keto Collective. It's going to be really awesome. We're super excited. Jessica might join in on the stream because Ryder just fell asleep. That'd be awesome if Jessica came and gave some thoughts. Well, it's not just me babbling. But we're starting the next round of the Keto Collective in 2 weeks. A lot of people coming to the Keto Collective are also coaches looking to implement this style of eating in order to help their clients as well, because they understand the power of restricting carbohydrates, keeping that low insulin state, keeping that stability in blood glucose, which can reduce cravings, reduce inflammation, and make it really, really easy to tap into our own body fat and burn that body fat long term. All right, so a lot of people come to us because they've been eating too little protein and they're afraid of protein. This is one of the most common issues I see in ketogenic dieters now is fear of protein, proteinophobia, and the issues associated with that. If you don't get enough protein, you're not going to be creating the hormones you need. You're not going to be repairing lean muscle tissue, and you're not going to get the benefits of satiety. Now, satiety is what we're all looking for on a ketogenic diet if we're doing it for fat loss. It's not like just having high ketones is going to make you lose weight. You can push up your ketones through eating a bunch of MCT oil. You can push up your ketones through eating a whole bunch of fat that can be rapidly turned into ketones in the liver. High ketones is not indicative of metabolic health. In fact, once you adapt to a ketogenic diet, once you are well adapted to the pathway, your muscle tissues are going to be oxidizing ketones, or not ketones rather, fatty acids directly. So you don't need to send the fatty acids to the liver in order to burn them in the muscle tissue at that point. Your body's going to break them down directly in the muscle tissue and oxidize them for energy in a non-glycolytic activity. So elevated blood ketones doesn't really last super long for a lot of people. They might find in the beginning they're getting like 2.0 on the blood ketone meter, right? You prick your finger, you put it into the gigapet, it tells you 2.0. You think, oh great, the keto repeatos online have told me that means I'm in ketosis. Well, ketosis is just a side effect of the diet. It's not actually the goal. And if you were on a glucose-based diet, would you be looking for super high blood glucose numbers as an indicator of metabolic health? No. You want stable blood glucose levels. So ketones should be looked at similarly, in my opinion. We shouldn't be looking for a 3, 4 on the ketone meter all the time. When people who are actually burning their own body fat the most effectively and efficiently, Ryder woke up. He's all happy. It's funny. He fell asleep, then just came trotting out smiling. People who are burning their own ketones, burning their own body fat for ketones, aren't going to show massively elevated blood ketones for an extended period of time. In fact, what I found that when people are optimally burning body fat, losing like 2 pounds or more a week, which is incredible results, right? You shouldn't be looking for, oh, I lost 10 pounds the first week. I need to lose 10 pounds every week after that if you're going for long-term fat loss. Right? We should be looking at long-term lifestyle and habit formation, right? Finding nutrient-dense meals that you can make regularly, nutrient-dense foods that you can eat that leave you satiated, that you can enjoy, and that you don't have to really think about, right? Hey, Ryder, you want to come say hi? So building a solid foundation of habits is really crucial in a ketogenic diet. And those habits need to be associated with good habits of food prep. That's why Jessica spent 1.5 years making the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook, which is now available in print. And it's all focused on nutrient-dense, whole foods-based recipes. So you can get this on our website. Really good resource for formulating ketogenic meals, for actually making a foundation of solid nutritional habits. And we base this entire book on similar principles as laid out in Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. When you look at any of these cultures that still have their heritage, that still have the cultural integrity, the moral integrity that comes with a culture that is not completely dominated by corporate global McCulture, and subverted by duped fake activists who think that they're doing good by destroying the world's cultures and telling them that they're evil for eating animal-based foods. Right? When these cultures are uninterrupted and are actually able to use the fat of the land and live off the fat of the land, you don't see dental arch deformation. You don't see criminality. You don't see tuberculosis. You don't see degenerative diseases. You don't see high rates of cancer. And you don't see physical, mental, moral, psychological degeneration that you see in these vegan populations and the modern day population.
Well, a little bit of this. Oh, this is the juice. This is nutritional yeast. It's got a cheesy flavour. It's got lots of B12 in it. Where do you get your B12 from, bro? So, bit of salt, bit of pepper. Seasoning, this needs a bit more salt. Boom. Alright, whack that in for freshness. Look at that. A little bit of the secret ingredient here.
So, I mean, like, you're seeing fake cheese, fake meat, right? I mean, just total nutrient deficiencies. Really ridiculous. So, full fat milk for the kids, right? We don't give the kids the skim milk. We give them raw, full fat milk. We give them plenty of butter. We give them plenty of full fat foods. We give them the animal fats, and we represent foods like bone marrow. We've got an entire section. We've got an entire section in the book on how to make organ meats, the most nutrient-dense parts of the animal. Check out our website. We've got several recipes for organ meats. And the organ meat section, the odd bit section of this book, is one of my favorite sections. So there you go. Hashtag triggered. Got a beef heart there. That's not a recipe, by the way. That's just a picture, you know. It's like we have to normalize these practices again. People have been so disconnected, they think it's gross to even handle meat, right? Like, we've got friends who've got 4 kids, all of them highly autistic. They've been on vegetarian diets their whole life. None of these kids, you know, a lot of people say, oh, maybe it's vaccines or something. None of these kids are even vaccinated. There's no other environmental factors except for the massive amounts of technology that they're using. These kids are always on iPads, and the parents have been vegetarian for like 20 or 30 years. All kids are showing heavy signs of autism. 6-year-old girls, nonverbal. Their 10-year-old doesn't even speak. I mean, it's so sad. And they're afraid to handle meat. They think it's gross. They've programmed themselves with this, right? So we've been programmed to believe through these big government agencies, these big government, intragovernmental and supragovernmental organizations like the UN, through NGOs like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and even now through Saudi royalty. These Saudi princes, Prince Khalid, whose father owns one of the biggest yachts in the world, whose father's yacht was used as a Bond villain's lair. In one of the Bond films, I forget which one it was, in the late 1970s, who's been accused of human trafficking, international arms trading, very, very sketchy dude. This guy is promoting veganism in the Middle East now, and even funding Plant-Based News and Dr. Greger, one of these other fake vegan hacktivists who tells his audience to sterilize themselves, right? So, I mean, it is what it is. Like, you judge a tree by its fruit, and if your tree has no fruit and it's unable to produce fruit, then the generations that live will be the ones that are eating meat and making families, eating meat and making communities, right? Actually sourcing our food and growing our own food. Very, very important that we use the nutrient-dense parts of the animal, like the organs. So we've got a lot of recipes in here. How to prepare heart, liver, kidney, tongue, render tallow, make broth. One of my favorite recipes is the seared heart steaks. I really like I'll show you this is such a pretty picture. The seared heart steaks is a great recipe. Topped with some grass-fed butter. Like we spoke about in this Swiss population that Weston A. Price studied, they highly revered, and they were a Catholic community, and they would actually get together and they would thank God for this seasonal butter that they had that was so full of nutrition and fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, that they knew it was associated with fertility, with health, both physical and mental. Let me see. Again, the camera is not very focused here. Let's see if I can get to focus. There we go. So we got to eat meat and make families, folks. Ryder's getting sleepy. I'm almost putting him to sleep. Boing, 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 boing. Ba, ba, ba. You want to go ba, 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 Ari? No, you want to stay with Daddy? Yeah. All right. Well, he's going to sit in my lap. All right. So, healthy soil, healthy communities, and healthy physical bodies are all very, very important for the future of the human race, for the future of our cultures, which are being degenerated by design by this global international NGO, right? Tyson Foods, McDonald's, General Mills, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the UN, Ford Foundation. These are the vehicles for the degeneration of culture. And we need to take back our ancestral knowledge and utilize that ancestral knowledge and eat like our ancestors did. And I don't mean in this stupid way that the paleo movement talks about, like, oh, what did the cavemen eat? We can look at modern populations in just the 1930s, which many of them have completely degenerated by now. But we can look at those populations and see how they were eating and see the foods that they held and revered as sacred foods. And we can see that they were mostly animal-based foods that all of these cultures highly esteemed, and they would supplement certain plant foods for alkaloids and alkaline minerals, certain fruits that were available in season in some of these places, especially in the tropical areas, they would use fruits. But all of them were using abundant fish and seafood, were using abundant animal and ruminant foods, and as soon as they come in contact with the Anglo-American culture, right, Mick culture, they would rapidly degenerate physically as well as morally, and you could see it in their countenance. All right, so I'm going to show you the next section of this book, which is, this is one of my favorite because I come from Gaelic stock, right? Like I come from a Scottish family back in the day. Jessica as well, Scottish heritage. Also, I got some British blood as well, but I don't speak about that part of me. So the isolix. Look at these beauties. The typical black house of the Isle of Lewis derives its name from the smoke of the peat burned for heat. The splendid physical development of the native Gaelic fisher folk is characterized by excellent teeth and well-formed facial and dental arches. All right, so the Isle of Lewis, population of about 20,000, no trees, little lime in its soil. They couldn't even really have very many ruminants. They had some sheep there, but they would use that peat that was growing everywhere, this moss that was covering the entire floor of this island. They would use that for fires. They would put it in the middle of their hut and they would burn it. And we'll get back to that later, which is really, really important. And we can show, and this illustrates another one of the ways that global culture degenerates and destroys, through this international genocide, self-sustained people. It ruins their culture and ruins their health and makes them dependent on imported goods and cuts them off from the ancestral knowledge of how to feed themselves and how to raise healthy, happy, effective people. Healthy, happy children who've got functional teeth, functional pituitaries, functional central nervous systems and brains, so they don't end up like these soy boys promoting these vegan diets. All right, so let's check this out. All right, so they were mostly dependent on fishing. The basic foods of these islanders are fish and oat products with a little barley. Oat grain is the one cereal which develops fairly readily. And the way that they actually grew this oat is they would burn the peat moss and they would have these thatch roofs. They would take the thatch of the roofs that had the minerals from the peat moss that was burning up in the middle of their homes, and they would use this to fertilize the soil, and that was the only way that they could grow the barley because their soil was so poor there. But they found a way, and they ancestrally knew a way that they could use that peat moss to make their barley grow. So they would eat these oat cakes, and they would live mostly on fish. So they had an abundance of small seafoods, lobsters, crabs, oysters, and clams were abundant there. Important and highly relished article of the diet was baked cod's head stuffed with chopped cod's liver and oatmeal. So as you see there, the livers being very, very important. Okay, now, a lot of people doing the so-called carnivore diet now are forgetting some of the most nutrient-dense parts of the animal. So if you are doing carnivorous-style eating, please look into using organ meats. Check out the organ meats section of Jessica's book, which we've got available in print as well as an ebook. And the ebook's way cheaper, obviously. You know, we self-publish this. You're not going to find it on Amazon. Not working with the Global McCulture Amazon website. We're actually using a small family printing company which prints on demand for us. Really grateful for that. And they do ship internationally, although, of course, shipping internationally is kind of expensive, unfortunately. But fantastic resource there. So they've got about 4,000, population of about 4,000 in certain parts of the animal, floating semen, and large quantity of fish were packed here in the ports. These people who were eating this unusual perfection to find examples of woman degree of physical perfection and more exalted ideals than those weather-hardened toilers. They had frequent gales, sleet-ridden, enshrouded in penetrating cold fogs, and life was full of meaning. For characters that are developed to accept as everyday routine raging seas and piercing blizzards. Uh-oh. I'm getting a little bit of lagging here, at least on my end. I'm not sure if the stream is. Let's see here. All right, I don't know what's going on here. I'm getting a lag. Okay, hold on, guys. Bear with me here. All right, it says my stream quality is good. Let me see. All right, I think I'm back. Am I back? Sorry, guys. Had a little issue there with the decoder. Hopefully this works. If not, last 4 hours stream. I've been having real issues. I have plenty of upload speed, plenty of download speed. I don't know what the issue is, and I apologize for the stream buffering issues. We'll see if I can get this to work. I'm also trying to record this stream, and hopefully we'll be able to actually upload this later on as a recording. So here we go. So teeth of unusual perfection. They're eating a lot of seafood. High level of intelligence and strength of character noticed. They had a very strong community sense. No dairy animals on the island. Their nutrition provided by their oat products and fish. Very limited amount of vegetable foods. Lobsters and flat fish in abundance. Fruits were basically unknown, yet their physiques were remarkably fine. The teeth of the growing boys and girls had a high degree of perfection. Only 1.3 teeth out of every 100 had ever been attacked by dental caries. And remember, that's in association with, that's in relation to modern populations in the United States and Britain at the time that were getting like 50, I think it was 25 to 75% of people having dental caries in their teeth. So very, very low percentage of teeth affected through dental caries, and these people had super limited amounts of plant foods with some oats. So populations actually came in to this island, and they started telling the people to stop using their ancestral of burning the peat moss in their home. Now these were the same people, the same people who started using the modern imported foods, started trading their fish and seafoods for sugar, for canned foods, for the marmalades, for the white sugar, they would rapidly see degeneration in their teeth and in their health, and they'd see a rise in tuberculosis on the parts of the island that were eating imported foods. Now, the elderly people in the area were bemoaning the fact that the generation that was growing up didn't have the health of the former generation. I asked what their explanation was. They pointed to 2 stone grinding mills, which they said had ground the oats for oat cake and porridge for their families and preceding families for hundreds of years. Though they prized them highly, they were told not to use them anymore. The people started importing foods. They were using the white. So he was trying to figure out more tooth decay and degenerative disease in certain parts. Nutrition was shipped into certain districts in the form of refined flours, canned goods, and sugar. Few herds of dairy cattle to be seen. Highland cattle didn't do as Scottish ranges. And he ended up finding that many of their teeth are degenerating. Very, very important things that we see. One of the important changes in this as well was the British started coming in and telling them the reason you're getting tuberculosis is because you're burning this peat moss in your homes and it's destroying your lungs. Whereas they've been doing this for thousands of years, and the same populations that were using this practice but still eating seafood didn't get tuberculosis. Yet, the British aristocrats, the activists of their time, were telling them that your ancestral practices were wrong. That your ancestral practices are not healthy, and you need to live in modernized homes. They even subsidized the building of modernized homes and started subsidizing imported foods. The people stopped living in those homes, and they still got high levels of tuberculosis, and they still got more dental caries, whereas the fishing populations who were living off of the cod livers and cod's heads, the crab, the fish, and the seafood, didn't have this degeneration. So not only do we see global culture, global imported culture, degenerating people's health, but also the practices of how they build their homes and how they live gets brainwashed out of them. Just like here in South America, where if the vegan hacktivists had their way, they would tell these people that it's cruel to have herds of alpaca. Right? The Inca and pre-Inca folks living in the highlands of the Andes have had herds of hundreds and thousands of alpaca, which they lived off of almost exclusively for food, trading certain food goods from the coast, like fish eggs, to use for fertility and nutrition, pre-conception and during pregnancy. And this was a really big issue. Well, this is a really big issue because you're seeing now people say that, oh, fur is cruel, wool is cruel. Having herds of alpaca and using these animals, having animal husbandry is rape and murder. They use these crazy strong words, and they try and tell you that they try to manipulate you and gaslight you into feeling guilty about using animals for sustenance, about using animal husbandry to keep our cultures, our families, and our bodies alive, which we've done forever, since the dawn of humanity. Really, really important that we understand how to nourish our bodies, how to nourish our children, how to build happy, healthy families, which results from having happy, healthy cultural heritage that's not robbed from us through these international corporations, supra-governmental organizations like the UN, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Saudi royalty now evangelizing veganism all over the world, and these dupes on YouTube who gaslight people into believing that it's somehow evil and wrong to eat meat because we could be eating processed soy and grain, and our brains can stop developing, and we can get degenerative neurological symptoms and be pasty, pale, effeminate vegans. Speaking of which, where'd it go? Oh, let me find this. I'm trying to pull up this video. Anyways, really, really important that we eat nutrient-dense foods, and that's why we're always harping on about food quality being important. You know, getting your macros right on a ketogenic diet, really important. Getting sufficient protein, very, very easy. I usually recommend between 1.5 and 2 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of your lean body mass, sometimes called your reference body weight. Sufficient protein being very, very important for proper maintenance of lean muscle tissue, for brain function, for the immune system to function. When I did a vegan diet, I can't emphasize how sickly I became. And it wasn't until I got incredibly sick that I realized that the decline was even happening. Because in the beginning, I felt really good. I cut out all the processed food. I was eating this whole foods-based, plant-based diet. I would laugh when people said, where do you get your B12? Because I would eat foods like spirulina, and I would eat a lot of nutritional yeast. And I'd even use these little B12 patches that people were marketing. I got so sick. I almost died in my bed. I felt my liver almost just swelling. I got a really gnarly bacterial infection. And I was in bed for a week. I couldn't drink water or eat any food. Okay, but of course it's evil to eat meat, even though it's required for healthy children to grow. And let's take a look at some of the vegan activism out there and just kind of listen to some of the insane degeneracy that's used and just the total cognitive dissonance used to push veganism. Let's check out Earthling Ed, who's like this little like unassuming stoner guy who goes up to people and he tries to like co-opt their vulnerable states, and he acts like he's really chill, like, oh, I never lose my cool, mate. Like, oh, you want to debate veganism? Like, oh, you shouldn't abuse animals. He uses all these just lame-ass tactics. But let's listen to how he talks about why veganism is required when he's talking to this farmer.
You kill a cow. You're a natural meat eater. How do you kill a cow? You're a natural meat eater. You don't need to use weapons. Lions don't use weapons, do they?
Yeah, they've got their claws.
Exactly, but they're natural meat eaters. But if as a natural meat eater, yeah, exactly. But as a natural meat eater, you shouldn't need to use guns or knives because you could kill the animals yourself naturally. No, because if you were a natural meat eater, you're not the ultimate. You take a lion on, fight a lion. Who's the ultimate predator? No, but you can. But that's a device. Yes, but you are not a natural meat eater. The word natural means nature. You're not a natural meat eater because you're using guns. But you don't have to eat both. But you don't have to. But you don't have to. I can eat a dog. I can beat up a child. Just because you can do these things doesn't make it moral to do them.
Okay, so first of all, he starts talking, well, it's not natural. If you were meant to eat meat by nature, you would have been born with a gun to kill an animal. Which is, I mean, this is just such nonsensical thinking. This is what they like to do. They like to cherry pick and define nature, which is, absolutely undefinable in his ideology. But he likes to define nature as whatever suits his agenda. So it's not nature for man to eat meat. Apparently it's nature for man to eat soy, corn, and wheat. Whereas when you see man eating soy, corn, and wheat, they wither away, lose their lean muscle tissue, and they end up looking very similar to him and thinking very similar to him. So he's telling this guy that you can't kill an animal with your bare hands. You can't kill a lion with your bare hands, therefore it's not natural to kill a lion. Which is just the most absurd thinking I've ever heard of. So apparently humans are not allowed to use tools because it's unnatural. So your juicer, Mr. Vegan, your wheat threshing machines, every single piece of processing equipment and piece of plastic that gets used to shrink wrap your soy boy degenerate foods are not natural according to your definition there. Right? So I would like you to define nature, Earthling Ed. Please define nature and tell me when nature stops and these unnatural practices begin. So what is nature? And yeah, what the heck is nature? They're also constantly confusing humans and animals, right? Trying to make you think that, well, humans are just animals. We're the same as animals. It's okay for animals to eat meat, though, but we have a choice. Right? Well, doesn't the tiger have a choice? How do you know the tiger doesn't have a choice? Shouldn't the tiger just choose to evolve and become the Darwinian Ubermensch tiger eating grass? All right, let's listen a little bit more.
No, you've gone on completely different topics. You've gone on morals now.
Yeah, okay, so how do you morally justify killing an animal that doesn't want to die?
How do you know if you want to die?
But no animal wants to die.
Can you speak to animals?
No, but can you? All it takes is simple logic. All it takes is simple logic. If you inflict pain on an animal, they avoid pain. They don't want...
Just like plants avoid pain. Just like plants lean towards the sun. Okay, so he says you can't use a gun to kill an animal. If you can't kill a tiger, then it's unnatural. So here's some Maasai warriors. There's people that have been disconnected from their heritage, disconnected from their culture through activists like him throughout the 20th century who've told them that you can't hunt on your land anymore. This is the king's land. You can't hunt in the king's woods. Now, the Maasai would actually completely dominate all the cultures around them, all the agricultural cultures around them. The Maasai were so hardy and strong that they would dominate the cultures around them. They would take away their women, and they would destroy the cultures around them. They had to kind of be, not had to, but the British aristocracy kind of tried to isolate them because they were doing so much damage to these other tribes around them that they were working on controlling and bringing into their eugenics-based ideology. So here's the Maasai hunting a lion with their hands with spears, using human ingenuity, using intelligence, and using the natural human skills, nature, which, define nature please, vegans. What is nature? It's so interesting when you look at like vegan cosmology and vegan theology, like what they actually think is natural. What is natural? There you go. So there's some humans taking down a lion with relative ease. They've lived among these animals for a long time, so really, really interesting. Really fascinating.
I got within 8 yards of him, and when I heard a growl, out he came, roaring for all he was worth. And you're now looking on the greatest fight you are ever likely to see between the Maasai and the man-eating lion. At night, I shall never...
Somebody mentioned the Joey Carbstrong, who, yeah, I agree, man. He's just like wild psycho eyes.
I'm gonna do a little bit of a different video today.
So, I mean, these people are preying on very, very vulnerable populations. And here's Joey. They like to try and mix up these other forms of activism, so they like to try and draw in people from like the other social justice movements that are all funded through big NGOs, and tell them that, check out his shirt here.
Hello everyone. So this video
Look at his
is
shirt.
an introduction to who I am, what I've done for the last 4 years.
So you could just see like the fear and anxiety in this guy's face. It's so sad. Vegan is the new black, says his shirt. So here he is talking to these lost, troubled, already malnourished youth who are vulnerable to this propaganda, who are already abused, already malnourished, living in a society that's using factory farming, right, which everybody can agree that it's terrible, right? But here he is saying vegan is the new black. So he's honorary black man because he's vegan. Look how the intensity and just the insanity in this guy's face.
Yeah. If I listen to what everyone thought of me, then I'm not living my own life. I'm living their life, what they want me to be. No, be true to yourself, and it takes more courage to do that, man. If anyone has ever had a near-death experience, everything slows down. Your life flashes before your eyes. And in that moment, I realized something. I realized that my actions, what I was doing, had reactions. It was coming back. My first experience with jail, I went to punishment.
Former criminal,
I was
right?
coming down off of drugs. My grandfather had just died, and I was dealing with all of the things that I had done.
Alright, so anyways, just one example of the fact that nutritional deficiencies do result in aberrant behavior, low cholesterol is associated with violent behavior, with depression, and with suicide. Really, really sad that these practices are really harming a lot of people. So very, very interesting. Silver Bunny says he promotes Marxist and communist ideology to control what people eat by moral relativism. Exactly. It's all this moral relativism crap. They have no definition of where morality even comes from. It's just basically pick and choose whatever strategy you can utilize in order to push your ideology. So it's really, really sad. But nutrient deficiencies are rampant these days, guys. And this is why I highly recommend you check out Nutrition, Physical Degeneration by Dr. Weston A. Price. This is one of the most important works on nutrition of the 20th century. If you deprive pigs of vitamin A, they will be born eyeless with undeveloped central nervous systems. They will be born blind and without eyes, which is one of the most alarming things that he demonstrates in this book. I'm trying to find the page. Here we go. So, pigs deprived of vitamin A, born with tumors, blind, with no eyes. And he talks about if you give the mother vitamin A, a single dose of vitamin A during the pregnancy, they will have partially generated eyeballs and a partially completed central nervous system, but you can cause complete degeneration in the eyes and the central nervous system and in the brain through deprivation of vitamin A. Vitamin A, retinol form of vitamin A, being only available in animal-based foods that were highly esteemed by many cultures in the world who would use fish eggs, liver, heart, right? Every single native culture in North America lived primarily off of animal-based foods. So very, very important to use ancestral knowledge, and I don't mean fake ancestral knowledge paleo crap of like, what did the cavemen eat? I mean just a few hundred years ago, just 70, 80 years ago. People were living in relative isolation from global imported culture, from Hollywood Disney foods, right? Before the Hollywoodization of the entire Western world, there were populations of Swiss, of Gaelics, there were populations in islands, Malaysia, Tahiti, that were eating primarily fish and seafood, supplementing a little bit with fruits and stuff like that, but living primarily off of fish and seafood and thriving with no degenerative disease, even though as soon as Westerners came in there, they would start degenerating, getting parasites, and almost dying when they were eating their imported canned vegetables, canned marmalades, white flour, white sugar, and low-quality food. So quality food, very, very important. Ancestral knowledge on how to feed our children, very, very important. Many of these cultures didn't even use dairy products. Some of them were highly reliant on dairy. And Weston Price ended up finding that he could regenerate teeth and stop dental caries by administering foods that were high in vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin K2, like high vitamin butter oil, like full-fat dairy, liver, and heart, in these populations of criminal children and children in boys' homes, and able to reverse degeneration in their mind and moral character as well. Very, very important for building healthy families, nutrient-dense foods. That's why Jessica spent so much time making nutrient-dense recipes for this book. So check that out too. That one's available on our website. You can get used copies of Nutrition and Physical Degeneration pretty cheap on like thrift books. I don't recommend Amazon. Not a big fan of Amazon. But in your local used bookstore. So find an old used copy and you'll be able to do that. So let's see now. All right. I'm going to see if I can get, I'm going to take a call now. We're going to get Natalie on here. Natalie, being a former victim of veganism, we're just going to talk about her journey of nourishing herself and recovering from the deficiencies, the nutrient deficiencies that she has. So let's, we're going to take an audience call in here, and hopefully this works. Again, I hope the stream has got good quality, guys. I know I had some buffering issues earlier, but I have been recording this, and hopefully the recording is going to be sufficient. There we go. It should be. Hopefully this recording is good enough. I might just delete the live stream and then re-upload the recorded video, or just leave it down and just the people who are watching this live can enjoy it. Because very, very important to employ nutrient-dense foods. Both of my kiddos are autistic, says My Crypto Morning. We have seen amazing results with them in just a month. I adore this life. And this is why we do what we do. You know, I mean, we've got friends who've got kids also exhibiting signs of autism who were not getting autism from some of the common things that people believe cause autism. Right? A lot of people will say, well, maybe it was the vaccinations, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. They were unvaccinated kids. Their family live in a good area. They do give their kids lots of technology. They let their kids play with the iPads and the iPhones, which are definitely highly dangerous to human beings. These are weaponized technologies. Giving your kid an iPad is very, very dangerous in my opinion. Please don't get the kids iPads. But high-fat diets, nutrient-dense diets, giving vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, good high-fat foods really, really help with developing children with their behavior and with their growth. So let's see if we can get Natalie on the line here. All right. So anyways, eat meat, make families. Very, very important, guys. Let's see. All right. She's not ready yet. Maybe she'll jump on in a few minutes. Let's look through here, see if there's any questions. I love the story of the Maasai, Shiny Silver Bunny. Yeah, there's a really cool section on the Maasai in Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. He studies these African tribes, which I'll show you a few images of the African tribes, which show marked degeneration as soon as they become disconnected from their animal-based nutrition. So animal-based foods being of vital importance to the African civilization. And, of course, when the colonial culture, when British colonialists came in, they said you can no longer hunt in the king's woods. They started displacing populations and destroying their genetic heritage, which is a strategy that you still see today. The displacement of cultures, the moving of populations, the weaponization of migration, and the disconnection of people from their ancestral ways of living is a way to dominate and control cultures and a way to degenerate people and make them more easily assimilable into an enslaved, degenerated society. So another very, very fascinating section of the book is the Australian Aborigines. Now, the Aboriginal people of Australia, having perfect teeth, having such high intelligence, such a high degree of ancestral knowledge on how to feed themselves when they're living off of their animal foods. Very, very few animal foods available in Australia. Australia being, actually now, you know what's funny, Australia is one of the major hubs of vegan hacktivism and vegan McActivism. You know, Joey Carbstrong, that other guy, stoner guy, I forget his name. Yeah. Also, Durian Rider and Freely. Durian Rider's teeth all fell out. He has fake teeth, and he pretends that his vegan diet is going to give him beautiful teeth when his teeth are actually fake. But as soon as the Aborigines get on the Western diet, their teeth degenerate. Okay, these people were so in tune with their environment, they were able to hunt fish without even being able to see the fish. They would just see the patterns of movement on the top of the water, and they would throw a spear into the lakes, and they would pull out several fish. So they were highly tuned into their environment, living off of the animal life around them with some plant foods. They had a rich social organization. Their early schooling includes tracking of small animals and insects. The boys begin throwing spears as soon as they can stand up straight. They had 3 supreme tests of manhood. First was to be able to withstand hunger without complaint. They would march for 2 or 3 days over the hot desert and assist in preparing the meals of roast kangaroo and other food choices and not partake of any himself. He must not complain if he becomes too weak. He's given a small portion. Then there were tests for fear, and they'd have to demonstrate they would accept death rather than flee. So actually, you know, brave people, not cowardly, weak people, you know, very, very strong, noble cultures. Well, they weren't educated into the wonders of veganism, into the religious movement of veganism. They had no immorality. They were very trustworthy. Immorality was cause for immediate death in their culture. They were taught deference and esteem for their elders. A boy may not kill or capture a slow-moving animal. All right, so they had honor in how they would kill animals as well. They wouldn't kill weak animals. They would go for only strong animals. A boy wasn't allowed to kill a weak animal. He had to kill the fast ones. Whereas the older individuals of the tribe could kill the slower ones. Okay, so you must limit Let's see. They had marvelous vision. They can see many stars that our race cannot see. So, I mean, just a really, really fascinating account of the Aborigines in Australia, which have been now, their culture has been destroyed. And they've been told that it's unsustainable. They have to live off of the canned goods of modernity that degrade our cultures, that degrade our bodies. Joe says, where did the last stream go? I had a lot of stream issues on the last one, so I took it down. Breton loves eat meat, make families. I've started saying that to my girlfriend all the time. Right on, man. That's what's up. We got to eat meat, make families. We got to eat meat and build cultures. We have to, unfortunately, we have to actually rebuild our degenerate culture. He says, isn't it interesting how all of the vegan SJW anti-colonialism radicals, they are colonialists is what's funny, end up defending the exact colonial global slave state they think they're fighting against. They don't, see, they're duped, right? These are uneducated people who just latch onto the first ideology that makes them feel good, and they think they're being rebellious. They think they're, daddy's going to pay attention to me now. I'm going vegan. When unfortunately, they're actually fighting for the destruction of all these cultures. So when you look at like the Peruvian highlands people, check. I mean, this is part of the reason why we live where we live, because of just the beautiful culture and heritage of these people. The book's old and falling apart. There's the Andean people, the Chimu culture, still living in accordance with nature, which, I mean, to define nature to these vegans, it's hilarious. Like, what is nature? Well, it's not natural if you kill an animal with a spear. You have to use your bare hands. Well, you can't use your nails either. You have to you have to kill it with your mind. It's just insane. But as soon as they come in contact with modern foods, you see degeneration of the palate. So here's strong, beautiful, good dental arch formation, and then some more examples. Great tooth formation. Healthy, strong people. And then as soon as they come in contact with Western food, these are in the cities like Lima, then you see massive degeneration. You see massive issues. All right. So I'm going to take a call in about 15 minutes. Let's see. I didn't mean for the stream to go so long, but my scheduled call-in is running a little late, guys. Hope you guys are enjoying the stream here anyways. John Scholl said, Lenin talked about useful idiots. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and unfortunately, these useful idiots usually end up the first ones purged in the culture, because it's like, these people aren't going to want to work for their food. These vegan activists are not able to, they have no idea where food comes from. They have no idea how difficult it is to grow plant-based foods, how degenerated the soil is from the plant-based foods that we've been growing and degenerating our soil with. We need animal husbandry. In Peru, the common practice of regeneration of the soil has always been the use of animal-based poo-poo. So, what they had was massive stores of guano all over the coast. They have these birds that are eating millions and millions of fish every single day. Those birds would then poop all over these rocks. There would be deposits of like 10 meters deep of this guano that they were actually exporting all over for a long time. But now Peru doesn't export it. They actually use it for their agricultural products. That's why Peru is one of the most fertile places in the world, due to the animal-based fertilizers they have from the fish-eating birds on the coast. Now, in the Peruvian highlands, the people would live off the alpaca. They would eat the alpaca fat. They would use the wool to make all their garments. But this is considered now cruel and savage. And these people living exclusively off of these animals are considered to be uneducated, savages, and brutal. Right? They use these beasts of burden to carry heavy loads all around the mountains. These are very strong, hardy people who live almost exclusively off of these animals. All their clothing made out of these animals. Somebody said, did Weston A. Price visit a tribe that had a limited amount of animal protein? He tried to find some. The closest thing he got to was some of these islands where they did have an abundance of fruit, but he still found that they ate mostly fish and seafood. So he was trying to find these things. He was trying to find people who had a limited resources available of animal-based food, but he couldn't. They would even use grubs in some of these areas. Like the Aborigines, I believe, were eating many grubs as well. Let's see, I'm trying to find. So the Eskimo population. Now, a lot of the vegans like to try and say that, oh, well, you look at the Inuit, and the Inuit now have terrible health. Yes, the Inuit now do have terrible health, and Weston Price in 1933, when he traveled through Alaska, saw the degeneration as soon as these groups were in contact with modern culture and with trade goods. They started getting poor teeth, tuberculosis, poor health, cancer, and they started dying young and having low birth rates. But he did find a few populations of isolated Inuit who were still eating their natural diet of blubber, of mostly animal-based fats and seafoods, caribou and moose, supplementing with some seaweeds, and using some dried berries when available, and certain very specifically prepared plant foods when available, and then focusing heavily on the organs of these animals. And they had perfect teeth, no degeneration, and were very noble and strong people. But as soon as he would get into the port areas where trading was going on, he would find degeneration within one generation. And even people who lived off of a native diet for half of their life and then would move to a city would see dental caries and disease start to penetrate into their population. All right. The problem with the world is that intelligent people are full of doubts while the stupid ones are full of confidence. So, I mean, how do you define intelligence? And do you define intelligence as people who sit and read Richard Dawkins all day? Or do you define intelligence of people who know how to feed their children and have fertility? Of people who know how to raise their children to not be criminals? People who know how to live in accordance with principles that will bring happy, healthy children into the world? You know, how do you define intelligence? Just like how do these vegans define nature? You know, I would say that many of these native cultures are much more intelligent than the educated fools that are running around evangelizing modernity into the world. Hello, saludos desde Quito, Ecuador. Love your channel, man. I want to meet you. Right on, Alejandro Ortiz. That's awesome. We're going to be up in the Quito area. I really love Papayacta. We're going to be visiting up there soon. And yeah, it's amazing. You know, actually, in Quito and Guayaquil, if you look at Instagram, you'll see that there's becoming a big push of veganismo in Quito. Y es muy malo. Hay gente que dice que es muy malo para tener alpaca. Y es muy malo para tener la cultura natural de Sudamérica, de los Andes. You know, I mean, if these activists had their way, they would be evangelizing to the Shuar, who live primarily off of fish and animal-based foods. But as soon as they start trading with the Western world, and they know they highly guard their culture still, and they kill intruders, because they know that it massively degenerates their moral character as soon as they start implementing Western practices and diet. Okay. Is it true that the Inuit can't go into ketosis? Wyland, that's a good question. Yeah, the Inuit actually have a genetic polymorphism that prevents them from going into deep ketosis. You know, and this is another thing that people use to say, well, keto is a bad diet. Well, ketosis is not exactly the goal. So I think a lot of people that are looking at ketosis as the goal in the diet are a little bit misled. Ketosis is kind of a side effect of a very low carbohydrate diet. But being in ketosis all the time is not necessarily my goal. My goal is to eat meat and make families. My goal is to have healthy, happy family that's able to pass on practices to their children, to their offspring, so that my children can know how to feed and nourish themselves and maintain fertility in the world where fertility is dropping rapidly, where fertility is being destroyed, and where people are even getting vasectomies on purpose. All right. Yeah, no, Dustin's saying, I took that as an anti-vegan sentiment. Perhaps he meant otherwise, but to me, the vegans almost all are the most confident people about their dogmatic eating choices. I mean, look, I didn't take it either way. I'm just, you know, I read the statement and I said, well, how do you define intelligence? Someone says cheese tastes good, and some cheeses are a good source of K2. Yeah, so I mean, some people don't handle dairy well, right? So these Swiss could handle dairy, right? A lot of the British population can handle dairy, whereas some other genetically inclined people will not be able to have dairy. But having raw cheese and dairy is always going to be far better. Don't go for the pasteurized stuff. You don't see any of these cultures using pasteurization or using low-fat dairy. So full-fat dairy, good aged cheeses can be a great source of vitamin D, vitamin K2, especially if they're eating rapidly growing grass, as Weston Price found that was very, very important and a sacred food to the Swiss population he studied. One of the few Swiss populations that was immune to tuberculosis and dental caries. But as soon as the areas surrounding this region, who were genetically the same, came in contact with modern foods, they would degenerate. They would start using skim milk. They would start using sugar, white bread, processed food, canned vegetables, canned marmalades, the foods of modernity. And they would have degeneration. Okay. Let's see here. Most tribes existed around some reliable source of animal food. Every tribe. There's not a single tribe that didn't have a reliable source of animal food. And as soon as they're deprived of their natural diet of animal food, especially fats, right? Like, so the bone marrow, very important in North American Indian populations. Liver and heart, which is why in the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook, shameless plug for my wife's book, that's why we got an entire section on the organ meats. That's why we teach you how to make liver, teach you how to prepare nutrient-dense foods like heart. This is one of my favorite recipes. Just basic food, liver in cream sauce. So, you know, full-fat dairy, as well as the organs of animals being very, very important to many of these populations. Okay. Let's see what else. Is there a good documentary about the real way to eat? So many vegan documentaries. I don't know. Read Weston A. Price's book. It doesn't even tell you that there's one great way to eat, one perfect way to eat. And I won't tell you there's one perfect way to eat either. What I will tell you, there's not a single population that has survived more than one generation without degenerative diseases and total destruction of their development physically without animal-based foods and animal fats. And as soon as they remove those foods, you see massive degeneration in their physical and moral character as well. Okay. Let's see here. Thanks for putting me on to 100% dark chocolate now. Never turning to stevia sweetened chocolate again. Quiche. Right on, dude. That's why I got my stash. So this is another one of those heritage fruits from South America. This is like one of the few, actually right now, this is kind of, cacao is like the only plant food that I've been eating for like the last year. I've been eating mostly animal-based foods, animal fats, organ meats, lots of steak, eggs, and then chocolate, 100% chocolate. So this is one of these Ecuadorian heritage crops. This stuff is this is 100% organic. This is available on our website too. This is the, like, all right, you can see it won the silver. Come on now. Focus. Focus. It's not focusing. It won the silver medal, second place at the World Chocolate Awards in 2017. We work directly with this company who sources only from small family farms, heritage, heirloom crops, not the hybridized crap, no sugar in this. And this is just a 100% cacao bar. They got another one that they call it a 101%, which is the one that Jessica prefers. You can see my little stash in here. The 101% bar comes with nibs in it too. So it's just ground up fermented cacao beans, which are really high in saturated fats, polyphenols, and it just tastes amazing. I would eat one right now, but I don't want to be rude. So the EU with the drunk pig Jean-Claude Junckers must know best. Raw milk is illegal in Norway. That's criminal. These are your heritage foods. All right, so it's like we have to push back against this. I'm not just out here babbling about this because it's like my pet project, or like I just like, oh, he knew some vegan who was a jerk. No, like I've been directly affected negatively by this. I've seen children's teeth rot out of their face. I've seen children degenerated and autistic because their parents refuse to give them any animal products because they think what they're doing is good, because they're afraid of parasites. You're going to get parasites if you eat meat and fish. Whereas their kids are pale, can't create vitamin D, even though they're in the sun for hours, are totally autistic and barely verbal, and they won't give them animal-based fats, which are required by every single civilization for fertility, all the fertility rites around breeding. In every one of these cultures we discussed so far, they all have special foods that they give the woman before they get pregnant. And all those foods are based around animal fats. Hydrofire is talking about first food for a baby when weaning from breast milk. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but we gave our kids meat, eggs, fish, raw egg yolks. We gave some raw liver and heart and some cooked meat too. Easily digestible foods, non-fibrous foods, and then we started introducing like avocado and some of these other foods. You know, I'm not against plant-based foods, even though I don't eat a high-fiber diet. I find that I do much better without the fiber. All right.
Hi, sorry about that.
What's up, Natalie?
Yeah, bender, and I gotta wait for the police to come, and I am so sorry I'm late.
You had to wait for the police to come? What happened?
Yeah, because, well, someone hit me, and then they drove away, and I had to wait for the police to come, and they were there within, like, 5 minutes.
I'm so sorry. That sucks. You got nailed.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, no, I'm just, you know, I think the audience enjoyed it. We were just talking about nutrition and physical degeneration, and hopefully the stream wasn't buffering too much. I had some buffering issues early on, but I've recorded this, and if I did have buffering issues, just for the audience, I will re-upload this, and you guys will be able to watch it without the buffering issues. So, yeah, we've been talking about you know, the dangers of restricting a diet from healthy fats, healthy proteins, and some of the heritage foods that we all need. So I guess you had an experience with a vegan diet, and my kid's screaming down there. Sorry guys, we got a wildling.
I was in college, and usually, you know, you hear when you go to college, you gain a ton of weight from all the partying and stuff like that. And I didn't gain weight at all, but then my last year, I gained a ton of weight because I was a vegan, and I thought I was doing the right thing. And I ate nothing but peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on whole grain, and I ate a ton of fruit and all that stuff, thinking I was so healthy. And within a month, I gained about, like, probably 10 pounds. But that was probably water weight and stuff, too. Yeah. But it was ridiculous.
So how did you hear about, like, a vegan diet? Now, I know myself, like, I actually, in my last year of college, that's when I started getting into a vegan diet as well. So I think it's an interesting parallel there.
Well, my husband, he's my boyfriend at the time, but his family is vegan. Yeah. And they kind of talked me into it, and I'm like, I guess I'll give it a try. They were showing me all the videos and stuff of animals getting slaughtered and things like that. And it just, you know, I had to become a vegan. And so probably within a year, I quit, and I went to a nutritionist, and she told me, you know, vegan isn't for you, because she tested me for food allergies, and I couldn't have any fruit on the chart. There's over 100 different fruits. And I couldn't have any fruit, any gluten, any rice, any beans, anything like that. So I'm like, I'm just going to have to forget about the animals and, you know.
So you got tested and you had sensitivities to all of these foods, all the legumes, all the starches?
Every single fruit, every single berry, every single nut, every, you know, soy, everything. So she recommended like a carnivore keto diet for me.
Wow. So was that hard to accept? I mean, because you had kind of an emotional conversion to veganism, like it seems.
Yeah, you know, it was sad with the animals, and then you hear all your life about how fat clogs your arteries and stuff like that, and I just thought I wasted money going there, because I'm like, I can't believe she actually wants me to eat more bacon and more eggs.
Right, you're like, I'm leaving, like, I'm going to go find a real nutritionist who understands the enlightened way.
And then I gave it a try, and I lost a ton of weight, my mood's better, I sleep better, you know, I feel amazing.
Nice. So it was a kind of a short conversion. Before that, you were pretty fit?
Yeah. Well, wait, I'm sorry, I can't really hear anything.
I said, were you fit before that? Before you went?
I worked out, but I was still doughy.
Yeah.
So I was like a you know, I was working out as a vegan, but I didn't have a lot of strength. I was a doughy vegan, so I wasn't really fit.
How did you feel when you were on the diet, like energy level wise and everything?
I was really tired. I was really crabby. I was always eating.
Yeah.
Like, I would be hungry, but I wanted more sugar. I wanted a lot of peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
I would eat like almost a whole jar every day.
Wow.
I had a ton of peanut butter in my dorm.
So it's like your body was craving fats, and that was the acceptable fat.
Yeah, the peanut butter. But then there's so much sugar in peanut butter, so, you know, it was terrible. And I wasn't, like, getting the satisfaction I wanted.
Yeah. That's funny, because there's this thing, there's kind of a theory out there called the protein leverage hypothesis. And they talk, you've heard of it. Yeah, so essentially if you get enough protein, you stop eating the other macros. But if you're not getting sufficient protein, you're going to keep eating fat and carbohydrates if given an abundance of food. But once you hit this protein threshold, if you get enough sufficient protein that's bioavailable, you can digest, you stop eating it. So then, all right, so you got off of like the peanut butter, the low quality, you know, processed foods diet, and how quickly did your satiety kick back in? I mean, now you're real fit. You contacted me via Instagram. You threw a comment up. You say, hey, I did a vegan diet when I asked people if there was any former vegans who want to talk about their experience. And I mean, you're incredibly fit, super strong. You're like a coach now, right?
I'm actually going to school to be a coach.
Nice.
But I'm still trying to help people out with everything, and you know, I'm just trying to put the word out there about keto and stuff like that, because you know, so many people are thinking fat's bad for you and they're gonna get fat from fat. So I'm just trying to help as many people as I can before I'm a certified coach.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how soon after you started implementing like more, you know, human diet practices of using meat and the fat from animals, how soon did you reverse your symptoms of fatigue and of a doughiness, as you said?
Yeah, it was funny because I thought it would take a while, but within a week, like, you know, the bloating went down, my face, like, people noticed I lost a lot of weight in my face, and it only took about a week, probably, like maybe 7 to 10 days. Yeah, 7 days it took me to start feeling like I was in ketosis, because I just started doing it strict. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I have to do. And I just did it. So
you went right into like, you didn't just like, okay, I'll have an egg for like a week, I'll eat a few eggs. You were just like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a keto diet.
Like the first day, it was just like a chicken breast. And I was trying so hard to get it down because, you know, it was just like, oh, this is so awful that I'm eating it. And then the next day I'm like, I just got to man up about this.
Yeah.
So
isn't it funny? It's like we can program ourselves. We can program ourselves to being so averse to things that we actually need, right? And it's like through trauma we can be programmed to reject real love. Like through trauma we can be programmed to reject true connection with human beings. And you see this in people all the time who've got like daddy issues and mommy issues. But it's funny because the vegan activists and this whole like guilt tripping, gaslighting people into not eating meat, a lot of it gets based on emotional reactions, and you get told you're eating their suffering, and you get programmed with these words, and they use NLP, they use these confusing practices to get vulnerable people who are, you know, I think we're moral creatures by nature, and that morality should include proper nutrition and a proper way of nourishing the soil in our cultures. So it's like factory farming freaking sucks. Everybody can you know, agree that factory farming is really bad. But it's amazing, like we could be programmed into thinking that the things that will save our life physically, right, save us from degenerating physically, that they're dangerous and that they're bad and that they're so nasty. But then as soon as we actually are open to an experience, then, you know, I mean, you eat foods like heart, like liver, and you feel your mind turn on, you feel your body turn on, it's just amazing. Like you totally switch.
Yeah.
Nice. So how long you been doing like a keto style diet now?
A year and a half.
Nice.
Yeah, and I just went back for my follow-up with my nutritionist, and this time she wants me to do carnivore. So I've been trying to do carnivore for the past few days.
Cool.
And yesterday I kind of slipped. I ate some vegetables, but I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm going to try to do carnivore more strictly now. You know, I'm going to try to do it for probably like 5 days out of the week or something, and then, you know, have vegetables after that, and then, you know, just have a little pattern going on.
Sweet, sweet. Do you use like organs? Have you used liver and heart yet?
No. I was like looking into it, and it's really expensive right now.
Okay.
So I can't really do it. But I'm just eating like bacon, chicken thighs, chicken, like, you know, like the fattier cuts of meat.
Yeah.
Ribeye, things like that.
Nice.
But eventually I want to get into organ meat because I really want to try it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of, if you find like a butcher who can do grass-fed beef heart, it can be really, really cheap depending on the area you're in.
Yeah, Chicago, everything's expensive.
Okay, yeah. So if you're in the cities, it's really hard to find these things, and the people that are seeking it out are usually willing to pay a premium. But, you know, I mean, sometimes just taking you're in Illinois, you're not too far from probably some good sources of grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
Maybe taking a trip to like a farm or something, or finding like a cow share regionally that you can purchase, sometimes you can get like a quarter of a cow, and you can get a lot of these parts for cheap. But I usually recommend starting out with heart because it's really palatable. Yeah. And if you just mix up like ground beef heart with ground beef, that's a really good place to start with the organ meats.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a little bit more nutrient density and variety.
Right.
Yeah, and then also like slow cooked meat's nice too. You know, you get meaty bones or something, or kind of the less desired cuts of meat, and you throw it in a slow cooker, and it turns really soft, and it just peels apart, and that can be a good way to get in the collagen and the gelatin and stuff.
Right, like with ribs. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, just figuring out like the cheap cuts that people don't want in your area, and doing a little bit of homework can go a long way. So you're not always stuck with the ground meat and the muscle meat. That's awesome. So a year and a half doing keto. Like, is there anything? What was the most difficult part about it? Like, what was one of the hardest parts about going keto?
Probably the keto flu.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting, you don't hear about like, oh, you need salt, you need to take magnesium, you need to eat more avocados for potassium. And so I was just eating like bacon and eggs and broccoli and stuff, and I was still scared of salt, so I wasn't salting my foods. I'd get like low sodium bacon and stuff, and I was going through the keto flu really, really bad. And you know, I went to the doctor, and they said my potassium was really low and stuff like that. Doctor knew about keto, and he's like, yeah, you probably have the keto flu. And I looked it up on Google, and I guess that's what I had, and it was terrible. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was worse than eating carbs.
It's the worst. You know what I find, though? It's cool. Like, after you do it long term, even if you eat more carbohydrate, you don't get the transitional flu anymore. It's like your gut bacteria have adapted to it. Your body's kind of used to processing the fats. Kind of the flexibility. Not that you necessarily, like with your, history of the gut dysbiosis and stuff, you probably don't like going out of your ketotic state. But I do find that after long-term ketosis, you don't really have such issues transitioning. Right. It's pretty easy, actually. That's not. Yeah. You got any tips out there for people who are thinking about trying keto? People who are maybe transitioning from a standard American diet that was, maybe a lot of junk food, a lot of processed food, perhaps even like a vegan style processed food diet. Yeah. What would you what kind of tips would you give?
I would say salt your foods for sure. Don't make the mistake I made. Try not to get probably too much bad fats. I was doing that with eating. I was eating a little bit of peanut butter because not to have fat in them, and I still had that peanut butter addiction. So try to eat healthy fats, not like soybean oil or vegetable oil. Yeah, right. Maybe like avocado oil, coconut oil, flaxseed oil, things like that. And that's about it. And don't fear fat. Fat is not going to make you fat. Right. Sugar is fat.
Awesome. So, where can people find you? I know you got an Instagram. There's a Natalie Keto page. Natalie_Keto page. Your voice is cutting out a little bit there. It was getting a little bit of interference.
Yeah, Natalie_Keto page.
All right, right on. So, well, I'm glad that you. Someone said the last stream vanished before I could watch it. Sorry, John. The last stream had a lot of issues with buffering and stuff, which this one might vanish too if there was issues. But you know what? I mean, if there's just one or two people out there who can gain some sort of knowledge from this and some sort of inspiration, it's worth it to me. So sorry that the last one disappeared. Just the quality was really poor, and I didn't want to keep it up because it was it was having lots of issues. But I think this stream should stay up, and I did make a recording to back it up, and I'll upload that recording if I find that the YouTube version is bad. Yeah, Natalie, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story.
Sorry about the wait.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm sorry to hear that someone hit you.
Yeah. Hopefully, I get figured out soon.
Man, I just spent like a year fixing my car. I can't imagine. Like if somebody nailed my car, I would be so pissed right now. I'd be so mad. All right. Well, really nice to meet you. Stay in touch. I got your email. I'm gonna send you a copy of our ebooks, the ebook copies of our books, and there's an organ meat section in here. Like the odd bit section, and this should be helpful. I know you're doing a mostly carnivorous diet. It could be nice to. There's also a resources section that can help you out as well, just with maybe sourcing some of these materials. And somebody did make a comment. Let me go up here. Someone said that they. I just found a grass-fed farmer in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. There is hope. His name was Bull.
Okay, I'll look into it.
So Bull, why don't you like comment on or follow Natalie Keto page on Instagram and see if you can put her in contact with that person and help her out. And all right, yeah, so thanks for joining, Natalie. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much for having me. See you soon.
Right on. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
All right, that was Natalie Keto page. So that's cool, we're seeing people who have done kind of more nutrient deficient diets, who've gone down the peanut butter and bread route, thinking that might be a healthy way. And it's funny, like when you talk to a lot of these people, they end up showing that even when they're doing these diets where they're trying to eat like higher carb or they're trying to eat plant-based foods, their body's craving fats. They want peanut butter. So some friends of our family who all their kids were raised vegetarian, all of them highly autistic. I mean, it's really sad. And like nonverbal as a 10-year-old, nonverbal, like all their children nonverbal, very technologically shackled on the iPads and stuff. They started making these chocolate things with like coconut oil, cacao powder, and they were sweetening it with like monk fruit extract, like stevia, which if you look in the link below, we actually affiliate with, not stevia, I'm sorry, Lakanto. We actually affiliate with Lakanto that makes a monk fruit extract that can be really good for kids who you don't want to be eating white sugar and stuff. You can sweeten foods with that. Jessica actually in her book, The Ultimate Guide to Low Carb Baking, uses Lakanto in quite a few recipes to sweeten in a non-glycemic way. But these kids would eat the whole batch of this coconut oil-based food immediately, right? They would eat the whole thing. It just shows you, just like Natalie when she was going for the peanut butter, she wanted like the whole jar of peanut butter. The body is craving fats. And whatever source of fats, whether it's good source or bad source, you give it, it's going to tell you, give me more, more, more. But when you give it the right fat-soluble vitamins and nutrients, when you get enough vitamin A, when you get enough vitamin D, vitamin K too, the body doesn't want to eat all these other low-nutrition foods so much. Redeem says, pretty please keep this video up. I missed the first 30 minutes. I'll try, but if it's got skipping issues, I'm going to re-upload it as a complete stream from the recording that I have that shouldn't have a bunch of issues with buffering and stuff. So, Cleo, let's see. What's Cleo talking about here? Cleo says, I had a big improvement in hair and skin condition. Oh, no, that's Neodog. Big improvement, hair and skin condition, since adding organ meats to the mix. Yeah, so the organs of the animal, very, very important. When you look at any of the ancestral populations studied by West and Price, they would all use the organs of the animals as not just foods for generating healthy children, but also prenatal care being of vital importance to these people. Okay, but when we become disconnected from our modern or from our ancestral ways of eating, in just one generation you see massive degeneration in the quality of humans, as well as the quality of soil and the quality of morality and culture. All right. Dustin said the stream seems solid. Good. Good. I decreased the bit rate quite a bit. I'm very low bit rate. Luke says, I did keto for 3 months, was hyper-conscious about electrolytes, cramps daily still. Went full carnivore, no salt or supplements, cramps gone one day. Interesting. Right? Remember that there are some there are some foods that a lot of people on keto eat, and they don't realize that they have a lot of anti-nutrients in them. A lot of anti-nutrients. Tristan, you ever thought about having a big name YouTube vegan on your channel for a civilized debate? Nah, I don't do the debates with the vegans. They're such a degenerate worldview. These people are unable to formulate a coherent debate, and they make all sorts of metaphysical presuppositions about what nature is and stuff like that, and where morality comes from, that their debate and their tactics completely fall apart under any scrutiny. And I have no real interest in platforming any of these people. This is a channel about eating meat and making families. This is a channel about maintaining our genetic and cultural heritage as human beings, regardless of what culture you come from. You come from a lineage of people that were eating animal-based fats, animal-based foods, and supplementing that with some plant-based foods, where available and seasonally. Tristan, what are your thoughts on the potential fatty liver with a zero-carb diet? Well, I mean, you've seen a lot of people completely reverse fatty liver on a high-carb, or I'm sorry, on a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. So, I mean, you can get fatty liver from high-fructose diet, right? When you overeat fructose, when you overeat glucose, your liver starts to store fat. When you overeat fat and fructose together, you get major metabolic issues. Debating with vegans would be like trying to debate with a Scientologist, somebody. Well, yeah, I mean, a liberal autist says debating vegans doesn't work. I mean, it's just, there's no point. Like, it's about propaganda. It's about, these vegans will pick and choose whatever fits they pick and choose truth and moral relativism just to fit their agenda. So it's like when you debate a vegan, it always comes down to their theological framework and their metaphysical assumptions on what is nature, what is man's place in nature. And vegan cosmology is just completely jumbled. Usually they'll make appeals to like Darwinian evolution, but then they'll get totally mixed. I mean, there's a total self-contradictory ideological framework right there. It's really pointless. I'm not here to debate the vegans. I'm here to actually show people how to properly nourish themselves, and recommend that you guys look into how every single culture in the history of mankind themselves. And every once in a while, to shill from my wife's amazing cookbook, which you got available in print now. So you can find the book available in print, primaledgehealth.com. I think I'm going to start wrapping this up, guys. We got a lot of good questions over here. Let's see. Any good questions? Some examples of anti-nutrient foods on keto. Well, anything with phytates, right? A lot of foods that are high histamine, lectin-based foods. So, I mean, if you're trying to eat raw kale and stuff like that, you're going to be getting issues. Some people are not going to be able to handle high-fiber foods. High-fiber foods are going to create a lot of issues in people. Neodog says veganism equals a cult. Exactly. They're metaphysical presuppositions that vegans don't want to talk about, but they like to pick and choose when they do these fake debates with people. So they like to appeal to, let's listen to a vegan street debate right here. Vegan versus Cambridge student.
So what is it about children that makes them innocent?
So he starts off by trying to appeal, the innocence of children, right? Emotional appeals, usually bringing these up in the very beginning of their fake debates. They're debaters.
I believe that when we were children ourselves, we can relate to the ignorance that we have to the wider world. Wow. And I feel like the bliss that we get from ignorance is what makes children seem innocent, arguably.
What about you?
Who says children are innocent?
Well, flipping the coin on its head.
Define innocence, please. Joey Carpstrong. Define innocence. What is innocence? Another metaphysical word, right? This is a metaphysical concept.
They're innocent to an extent, yeah? They might be naughty for their parents, but you would agree that they're vulnerable and...
Would you say being vulnerable is the same thing as being innocent?
I think it's a part of being innocent. Would you agree?
I suppose in some sense you could say that, yeah.
So with being vulnerable and innocent, it would mean that, you know, they would need someone to protect them, you know, to look after them, to guard them as guardians. You know, children are vulnerable, like they're easily attacked if someone could attack them. You know, things like that. That would be what would make a child vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
So do you think in society we have a moral obligation to stand up for those who are more innocent, more vulnerable?
I do believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You would agree with that? Yeah. Most people would. I mean, this is just basically general, you know, ethics for a society.
I was waiting for you to catch this out, but...
So, no, exactly, it's fine. So what about animals? Do you feel that animals are vulnerable and innocent too?
All right, so innocence, not even defining innocence, which is a metaphysical concept. What do you mean by innocence? You mean innocence in terms of morality, of purity of your soul, which is a metaphysical concept. Most of these vegan, I mean, he's just completely into, look at the posture. You see the slumped over posture? Look at, I mean, it looks so painful the way his back is shaped. So this guy's obviously in both physical, psychological, and nutritional pain, and metaphysical, spiritual pain. Here we go.
They are, yeah.
They are?
Because it's quite similar. Like, naturally, bigger animals are more able to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Small children, which haven't grown as much, are inherently less able to protect themselves.
He's not even listening to the guy, too. He's just waiting to bark in, which is what somebody just said. And I agree. He doesn't listen to them. He's just like crazy-eyed, like... And he's got that the vibe that you find, like... Look, I know a lot of former junkies who are like awesome people, who've got families, who live their life, who are totally together. But then there's this certain breed of former junkie that's like still really deficient in nourishment and love, right? And they're seeking God, but then they seek it in these weird ways, and they're constantly trying to convince people like, I'm not crazy, I'm not weird, I'm not a junkie anymore. It's got this like this crazy-eyed look, and I gotta say, man, Joey Carpstrong totally exudes that vibe from like former meth heads that I know that are really hard to be around because they're constantly with those hungry eyes. A really strange vibe that's very off-putting and very hard to be around.
So they are vulnerable.
Do you agree that?
Yeah, I'd say defending themselves as well as part of it.
Do you feel like animals, they trust us to look after them, to nurture them?
It depends on the individual animal.
Okay.
So, do animals trust us? So he's like, I mean, they're just total. I don't get his argument here.
So like a dog would probably trust its owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you know you get smaller animals like I'm pretty sure like a rabbit.
Okay.
I mean, does a rabbit really have trust, or what is trust?
Well, let's just say that they would feel safe around someone who was nurturing them, feeding them, you know, showing them love and compassion. The animal would feel that, yeah?
Yeah.
Generally, that's what happens. You know, let's talk about dogs for a while. If you've seen someone hurting a dog, treating a dog unfairly, being cruel to the dog, would you try to intervene or say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would?
Yeah.
I used to have 2 dogs, so definitely, yeah.
Definitely. So that it feels like the dogs are close to your heart. They were your companions.
Yeah, they are close to my heart.
So, do you think dogs are different to any other animal in the way they feel pain and want to live and feel things like that?
I mean, so it just goes on and on and on, talking about the feeling. You know, do you feel compassion for your dog? So I mean, these people, they're preying on individuals who've never been sourced to their source of food. I mean, he's at Cambridge University. Andrew says same as with James Aspie. Exactly, they use the same appeal. Same with Earthling Ed. You know, like here's Earthling Ed.
Want to have pain inflicted upon them. They have a preference to live their life like you and I do. What right do you have to take their life from them?
It's how the world works.
It's not how the world. That's not an answer. How do you morally justify killing an animal that doesn't want to die?
That's how it works. Like, honestly,
Yeah, it isn't a moral justification.
So the way that you actually retort this is you actually, all right, so what do we base morality on? From where do we derive this objective basis for morality? Because then you're forcing him into a theological discussion. Most of these people are rabid atheists, yet they're constantly proposing a theological basis for their morality, which is always based on a transcendental argument on something that is metaphysical. So they're trying to appeal to reason, and you ask them, well, what is the nature of reason? And where do we derive this reason? Please show me where this reason is. And their entire argument crumbles before your eyes because it is all a religious, metaphysical basis for morality. And they want to play it both ways. They want to say, well, we're just animals. We're just like animals. Like, we don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to hurt someone. So how are we going to hurt these poor sheep and these poor cows? Because they want you to believe that sheep and cows are someone, that they're an animal, right? Yet in their metaphysical ideology, what are humans? Are we animals? Yes, we're animals too. Oh, but we have the choice. We don't have to eat these foods. Well, neither does a tiger. If a tiger were truly moral, wouldn't it just bow down, come live in a cage and eat Cocoa Puffs all day? And eat General Mills foods?
Yes, they don't have to. How do you morally justify taking the life of an animal that doesn't want to die? That's not true. Yes, it is, but that doesn't make it moral, does it?
So, this guy makes the mistake. I mean, most people have no idea how to really break down these debates. So where does morality come from? That's what you have to ask these people. From where do you derive this moral framework? And how do we come to agree on what this objective morality is? Because it always comes down to, well, you just feel it. You just know it. You just intuit it. We just know. We know what's moral. We know what's true. We know what's reasonable. Always this reason that they're appealing to. Where is this reason? Right? Because then it comes down to the metaphysical aspects of their argument, which is what their entire framework is based on, is a religious metaphysical argument. Now, of course, if you're an atheist or a Darwinian evolutionist, a moral relativist, you're not going to be able to argue with this because you fall prey to the same metaphysical presuppositions that they do, right? Either materialist rationalism, the Enlightenment philosophy, and all this. This is what gets used to drive this global culture and this degenerate activism that's completely twisted mentally and philosophically.
But it doesn't have to be that way. No, it is changing. This is why we're here. I don't know if you are, but the world is going. The world is changing. You got Nando's have vegan burgers. GBK's got vegan burgers.
But they still sell meat.
Yes, but they didn't used to have vegan burgers. They do now because the world is changing. Because there's a demand for it. Yes, but there's a demand for vegan food because there's more vegan food, more vegan people come into existence.
I love vegan food. Yeah?
Okay, great.
But it's not going to change.
It is changing. Yes, but it's changing. It is changing. So, but why?
People are still going to eat meat.
Yes, but people will still eat meat, but the world is changing. What moral justification do you have to take the life of an animal that doesn't want to die?
Okay, so then what moral justification do you have to tell healthy, noble cultures living off of animal foods for hundreds of thousands of years that they have no right to maintain their culture and their heritage and their ability to feed and raise their children and to be fertile? You know, I mean, we know that you, Joey Carbstrong, James Aspie, you're not going to have children. First of all, you're probably not able to have children. Second of all, you probably don't wish to have children because you don't like people and you believe that the world is overpopulated because you've given in to the British ideology, the Enlightenment ideology of the people who fund your movement and the people who told you in the 1930s that they were going to degrade your culture and feed you processed soy and cellulose. Right? So obviously you don't care about these things. You don't care about fertility rates because you hate humanity. Homo Deus, says Anders. Exactly. Homo Deus. This is the book by the degenerate guy. What's his face? What's that guy's name? He's an Israeli guy. He's a homosexual. No children. Talking about how natural selection makes man a god. Right? This is the ideology of modernity. Totally self-contradictory. There is no God, yet man becomes God. Homo Deus, we are God. We make up our own ideology. Okay, then. You're going to make it up yourself. You're going to make up morality as you go. It's all moral relativism. Then you have no right to tell any other culture, even in your own ideology. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm not saying I buy into it. It's nonsense. It's nonsensical. Just like the book Homo Deus by the sterile man who will never have children, yet he thinks that he is the tip-top of evolution, right? This British Israeli guy who he's not even going to have kids, right? It's just insanity, guys. So this is the religion of modernity, moral relativism. You make it up as you go. All cultures can be, it's all just relative. But to the vegans, in the moral relativism that they believe, They still want to live like man is apart from so-called nature, like man is apart from animals. And this is destroying cultures, it's destroying people's health, and it's destroying our heritage and our ability to feed ourselves without having to import foods and be dependent on massive corporations who are destroying our soil, who are crowding people into big cities where they become sterile and degenerate. But hey, you got porn, right? You get plenty of porn in the big cities to keep you busy. You get your iPhone. You can preen yourself on social media and post pictures of your vegan meals. But how many of the people in my generation are even going to have children? How many people in my generation are trying to have children but are sterile and infertile? How many people in my generation are nutritionally deficient and unable to have children? These are hard questions. And I'm not telling you that I have all the answers. But I am telling you that when you look at every single culture that is able to sustain themselves, just recently, this book, which came out about 80 years ago, there were still many people who were not in contact with the modernized Western foods. They had perfect teeth, perfect health, no degenerative disease, no cancer, no moral degradation in their cultures. And they were able to pass on their knowledge to their children until their children started trading off their resources for the imported sugar and the processed flours and grains and cereals, for the General Mills food, for the Tyson foods, right? That's why we're seeing big money funding veganism. Why is it that meat giant Tyson Foods is launching a line of plant-based protein bowls? Why is it that General Mills invests $17 million in vegan meal program? Why? Why? All right, guys. This is a really good book here, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, showing us how eating meat and making families is something that has kept cultures, kept human beings alive, even when in close contact, when in near contact with modern civilized foods. There were certain populations who were able to skip out on the degenerative diseases that are so rampant. But as soon as they started coming in contact with the modern refined foods, they degenerated. This is destroying our health, and it is also destroying cultures and heritage of beautiful, noble people all around the world whose practices have kept them alive in their local areas without the need to import a bunch of crap food, without the need to use a bunch of oil to fertilize their land. They were all using sustainable agriculture or animal-based foods. Many of them very little agricultural foods, in fact. Many of them living exclusively off of seafoods and select plant foods that they could only grow if they maintained the fertility of their soil using ancestral practices that as soon as colonists came in and the enlightened British activists came into their region, like with these Gaelic populations, they would tell them, oh, this is a degenerate practice. You can't do this. It will give you tuberculosis. Then they would succumb to degenerative disease. All right, guys. So, eat meat, make families. We talked about a lot of cool stuff today. I like doing these streams. Hopefully the beginning of the stream wasn't too interrupted. I might have to pull this down and upload the recording. Although I really hope I don't have to, because I think this was 3 hours. I told myself I'd keep it to 2 hours, but it ended up 3. So anyways, we're starting the next Keto Collective community group coaching session on July 29th. That's 2 weeks from yesterday. We've got a lot of really awesome people. Does the book also advocate honey? You know what? I know that a lot of the cultures he studied do use honey. He actually hasn't mentioned honey in any of these, but I do know that the Maasai would use honey, and many of these cultures do use honey, which of course is poor bees, right? It's an animal-based food, the poor bees. So anyways, the Keto Collective, it's a way we get a lot of private coaching requests, and I will be taking on a few private coaching clients over the next couple weeks, but after that, we're going to be doing mostly the next month, the Keto Collective, which starts July 29th, and I think it goes through August 26th. I could be wrong. It's a 4-week community coaching experience. We do several live interactive voice chats per week. We use a Discord server. We've got a few vets who are coming back. Our goal is not to get people repeating the Keto Collective, although a lot of people like the community-based support aspect. We teach meal prep strategies, meal planning. We teach heavily from the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook in there. And we go for a whole lifestyle approach, not just here's your keto macros, which, you know, we cover that in the first week. And a lot of people get so much information in the first week that they're just making progress for the next few weeks. But we like to touch on more than just diet, right? Other practices that we use, circadian rhythm optimization, optimization of the home and workplace. You know, simple things. Having some simple things around that can help you with your movement patterns, that can help you to enjoy the process of regenerating the body, regenerating your health, and taking back control over your health, because we are not creatures created to be dependent on imported foods, pharmaceutical drugs, B12 injections, and degenerated cultures and diets and bodies. We're creatures meant to thrive. We're creatures who can live off of the fat of the land and enjoy heritage foods, and it's really not hard to implement a ketogenic diet correctly. So we get a lot of people who've made the mistake of under-eating protein. That's one of the most common themes that you guys will find in this next Keto Collective. Guarantee you at least 20% of people that are joining it are afraid to eat enough protein, and once they get enough protein, they start losing body fat because they will naturally restrict the extra fat bombs and all this other crap that they're eating, right? You stop getting the sugar cravings, the cravings for the fat bombs and all these like artificially flavored crap that a lot of people are eating instead of nutrient-dense whole foods, instead of just eating some steak and eggs, right? Some liver, some organ meats. People are doing fat bombs, and they end up not losing weight and even gaining weight. Some people come, they've been eating 200 grams of fat when really they only need like 100 grams of fat to feel good and to lose a bunch of body fat and to be nourished if they're getting the right nutrient-dense foods in. That's a big theme usually in the first week of the Keto Collective. And we're really excited because we love to actually talk to you guys. You know, that's why I had the lovely, awesome lady who called in earlier, Natalie Keto page on Instagram. Make sure to follow her. I love to actually talk to you guys and learn from you guys as well. So there's a lot of coaches that come to the Keto Collective, and you know, we're always learning from everybody in there, and it's really cool because you get to learn from other people's experience and support other people as well. So yeah, guys, remember, you're far more than what you eat. You're far more than what you eat. Now, eat meat and make babies. See you guys next time. You can find more at primaledgehealth.com.